Hmm. All right, welcome everyone to this special session for the Strive Life Summit. This is our live Q&A session with Danyelle Gibson Grant. Welcome to the panel, Danyelle.
Thank you, Nina. I'm delighted to be here today. So thank you.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about your presentation because it's such a needed thing in the world to talk about this balance, this work-life balance, and finding that harmony. So I'm really excited to just dig in and, ask some questions that can help our audience. So maybe we just start there with giving a quick 5-minute recap of your presentation for anyone who hasn't seen it yet.
Sure. So essentially, I talk about balance to harmony and redefining what work-life balance looks like or it could look like. The data tells us that nearly 75% of workers, of employees have felt or are experiencing a level of burnout in their jobs, in their careers. And a lot of that stems from not having the appropriate work-life balance. I mean, I think in the day and age that we live in today, it's more critical than ever that we're fully aware and present of separating what we do in the workplace versus what we do outside of the workplace, and ensuring that we have the balance to do the things and to have the relationships and the connections with the people who fill us up and bring us joy and make life worth living instead of just focused every day on the ins and outs of what we do in our career and being essentially defined by that job or that job title. And so I really share tools and resources on how to balance that in a way that feels good for the individual. Because work-life balance for me could look very different than what it looks like for you, depending upon, your household responsibilities, what the scope of your life looks like in terms of family. And so I think now is a great time to have this conversation. I like talking about this at the top of the year. People oftentimes want to create a new year and do things different, and that's fantastic. And so I think this is a timely opportunity for us to engage in this level of discussion. So I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that a lot. Just yeah, the idea that we get to start fresh with the year and redefine how we're gonna show up, especially in the workplace, because that's such an important piece of our lives. I'm really curious about why so many people, because you pointed to the fact that um well, a few different things, but I'm really curious about why you think there's such an imbalance, or what the pressures are, maybe through society, or why are people struggling with that so much, and what are the elements um, that can help them, I don't know, break out of the mindset? Because I think a lot of this is a mindset issue, right? So I'm
Absolutely.
curious as to your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's a mindset, way of being, behaving. I think here in the United States, in particular, capitalism is at the forefront of who we are as a nation, how we show up in the workplace. You know, I think when I think around or about corporate responsibility, it's the grind culture here in America. I am reminded many times, and last year I went to Europe for my birthday. Yay. But every time I go to European countries, it's like a very different experience, in terms of how they work, their definitions of how they live. And I would love to see more of that family culture and dynamic here in the US as a way of being and living. When we think about success in life, or at least when I think about success in life, it's not just about the dollars and cents in my bank account. And while, yes, let me be clear, that is important, it's not the end all be all. It's being able to spend quality time with family, cherishing every moment, every day, every experience with family, friends, loved ones, the things that fill you up and bring you joy. And I just feel like in America, we're so focused on the dollar and this whole work, 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 hustle, hustle, hustle mentality, that we begin to lose sight of the other aspects and areas of our life that really create balance, that really create an energetic synergy in terms of who we are as individuals and how we show up. And so, to your point, I think it's a mentality, it's a capitalistic way of living and being that we've ingrained in ourselves and through the multiple generations. You know, when you think about the baby boomer generation and the industrial age and all that, you know, I'm a Gen Xer, and so how we move in terms of work and how we behave in terms of work is very different than what I'm seeing the newer and the younger generations, the Gen Zers, the what is it, the Alpha 8 generation. You know, they view work very differently. And I have to say, there's an element of that that I truly respect, because I think they understand by seeing my generation and even some of the older millennials not really have that balanced approach to life and leaning into things that truly matter for them. And so, what I hope with the presentation that I've put on is that people will begin to think. Individuals and leaders and workers will begin to start asking themselves the deeper question. You know, me getting up at 5 a.m. to commute for an hour, to get to the office, to work there 8, 9, 10 hours a day, commute back home for an hour, and then by the time I get home, it's 9, 10 o'clock at night. Is that really living? And how long do you want to stay on that path? And how does that fill you up and help you to be a better person in our society at large? And so these are the things I really would love people to begin to ask themselves, think about, and consider. And then from there, make the appropriate changes that supports them in their lifestyle.
I think it's really fascinating that you're recognizing it, right? That the new generation is maybe seeing that they're wisening up, I guess you could say, to the fact that what worked before maybe just doesn't work anymore. And
Right.
so it's a really interesting discussion for sure. And I'm curious about um, why you think, I mean, there's gonna continue to be a challenge in this regardless, right? But
Mhm.
I'm curious about your thoughts regarding why we maybe ascribe so much value or put our self-identity, in this ability to make money or to be successful financially, right? I think that's a big
Yeah,
piece of this conversation, and I'm just
sure.
curious what your thoughts are on that.
You know, I have to be honest. I think when I think back to when I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, you know, as a kid, I spent time outside, and I was a girly girl. So, for me, riding my bike and things like that, it was okay. I like playing with the dolls and stuff like that. But, I think about during that time and age, and it was about family, and you would play outside. I don't know about you, but you would play outside until the street lights, turned on, and then everybody knew kind of instinctively, oh, it's time to go back in the house. And so it was more, I feel like in that generation, it was a lot more community based in terms of relationships, family dynamics, those sorts of things. And that's not to say that everyone had that experience. But I look at the subsequent generations after. I think social media, while there's good benefits to it, I think there's a lot of negatives as well, because now you see your celebrities and your famous people and all the things and the stuff that they have, the cars that they have, the gorgeous trips that they take, the clothes that they wear on the red carpet. And I think that feeds into, well, in order for me to live like that, I've got to earn money, I've got to hustle, I've got to do this, that, and the other. And while, as I said, social media can be good, I think there's a negative influence in terms of all of that, in terms of what it means to live a successful life. and the money, the financial dynamic in that. And as I said, I'm encouraged and I'm warmed in my heart when I see the different generations talk about, I want to live and I want to give back and I want to build community. And it's not just about the dollar. And they use their social media platforms to promote goodness and community and not necessarily flaunting wealth and all the money things. And so I think that that's an interesting dynamic that I didn't have that growing up. So if I didn't see it in my community in terms of the fancy cars and the clothes, and again, in that day and age, it was a different time anyway. Your money went a lot further. Inflation wasn't ridiculously out of control. And I digress with all of that. But it was just more like, let's have fun and organic in a natural way. And let's have, family dinners. And it didn't have to be going to the five-star restaurant and the things like that. And let me clarify, because, as I said, I'm a girly girl and I love my luxury, but I also understand the balance between the two. And I will never compromise any longer my desire and ability for beautiful things for the sake of a dollar and leading myself to burnout.
Yeah.
And I think for some corporate professionals, you're just so in the grind and so in the motion and the activity of what you've been doing. You haven't taken a moment to really step back and think and say, is this the life I truly want to live? So, yeah, I think social media has a lot to do with where we're at as a society right now, particularly in the US. So,
Absolutely. I agree with that. And
um,
the next thing that comes to mind is, because your message is all about finding harmony and alignment. And while I can recognize that, obviously that's really important, um, and as you said yourself, that means different things for everyone. And so I'm, just to, I guess, ask the question that maybe the audience is wondering, where's the line between, really pushing for alignment and harmony and maybe coming off as maybe a little entitled and wanting too much or too many liberties, within the workplace. And so obviously, we have to, I mean, for those of us that do have to provide, right, and can't just leave our jobs, right? How do you navigate that in a healthy way? I guess that's what I'm curious about.
yeah, and here's the beauty of it. Because we live in such a dynamic time in terms of technology, there are opportunities and ways and careers and jobs that will afford you that flexibility, and that dynamic to have a job or a career that truly resonates and connects with you. And I think a lot of that obviously stemmed from COVID, when things had to be shut down and the world of work had to be reimagined. And I think some companies excelled with that and others struggled. And so my encouragement to the professional who's like, okay, I have to commute and, I hate it. But I kind of still love the work that I do. Look for opportunities that afford you more flexibility. There are many companies nowadays that offer hybrid work opportunities where you spend 1 or 2 days a week in the office, 2 or 3 days at home. There's many companies now that offer more flexible work schedules. So maybe you have kids and coming into the office at 8:30 or 8 a.m. really doesn't work for you. There are companies that can work with you and your schedule. So you come in at 10, maybe you leave at 7. So there's always opportunities. And even here's what I would say too, for the professional individual that's like, well, Danyelle, my company doesn't offer that. Here's what I would encourage you to think about and consider. You can always go to your leader, your manager, and present a business case for why you want a more flexible work schedule. Now, let me set the premise here. You need to be a top performer. You need to be meeting or exceeding expectations in your job. You can't be a slacker and think you're going to go to your boss and say, hey, I want a flexible work schedule. No. But if you're a great employee, you get great, annual reviews, you're, at the top of your game, most solid leaders will be open to consider, okay, how can I work with this individual? Why? Because they want to keep their best employees and they want to keep them happy. And if you're working for a company that doesn't have that culture or value system, I'm going to encourage you to consider looking elsewhere and find a company that does have them, because there are a lot out there.
I love that answer. So there's always an option, right? And
There's
as you
always an
said, if you are a top performer, if you are putting in the work and getting the high reviews, then absolutely they should be willing to consider
option.
your proposal, right? Because uh
It's all, Nino, in how you present yourself. And what I found in my background and experience, which I think is in the bio, I have nearly 30 years in HR. So what I know to be true is how you present that business case to your manager, supervisor, leader, is key in being able to have that opportunity work in your favor. And I think some individuals don't quite know how to navigate that conversation, but there are tools and resources and support available to assist with that for sure.
I love that.
Yeah.
What about in the case of people who don't feel deserving of something like this, finding that balance and they
Oh,
feel
yeah.
that it's their responsibility to work hard and grind? What would you say to
Yeah.
those
Oh my
people?
goodness. I would say that there is an opportunity for sure to change that mindset. And I get it. I understand. I mean, I grew up that way. You work hard, you stay at the company, you get the education. I get all of that. But as I said, in the world of work and the dynamics that we're in right now, this is probably the best time in history to change our paradigm around what it means to be successful in the workplace, what it means to be a successful employee. And the 20th, century, you go in and you punch the clock and you work, 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 and that sort of thing. The world of work has changed. We're in a technology age, we're in a digital age, an AI age, artificial intelligence age, right? And so it's really important that individuals understand how the world of work is changing and to appropriately adapt to that. And as I said, it's going to take a paradigm shift for those quote old school workers who think I gotta hustle and work really hard to be seen and acknowledged. And I'm telling you that as we move forward, that's not going to be the best or most effective way for success. And so this is where it's important to reach out to individuals or organizations or even a mentor who's really in tune with how the world of work is changing, so that you can be educating yourself on how to maneuver through this new time and age in terms of work, and adapt to it. So to shortly answer your question, it's really a paradigm shift that needs to occur in terms of that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. And I think for maybe those in that position that grow up with that old mindset of just working and grinding and that's their purpose in life. I think there's obviously a paradigm shift that needs to happen because of new work dynamics and new opportunities. Um, how do you, I guess, or what advice would you have, if you're trying to help someone break out of that or have the paradigm shift? I mean, is there
Sure.
is there something there that or techniques that you use to kind of shift their focus? Because so many people, put their identity into that, into being hard workers, into
Right.
being, the workaholics or whatever. So, how do you, what is the catalyst, or how do you kind of
Sure.
get that process going?
So the first thing I would say and frankly ask is, how is that serving you? Because if the data is telling us nearly 75% of workers are feeling burnt out, that's huge. And so that essence of, being burnt out and understanding it, you think, well, I'm just working hard, that's part of the process. It's okay for me to be exhausted. It's okay for me to be mentally depleted. And so my first question would be, how is that helping you? How is that being of service to you? Because if you're answering the question and you're saying, well, it's really not, I'm suffering from migraines every day and I have to take medication all the time. And, I just don't have enough time to even go to the gym and work out. And I don't have enough time to walk or to eat healthy. I mean, really examine your lifestyle, because there's going to be signs that's going to tell you you're not in a good place. Overeating, drinking too much, chilling out and watching hours of mindless television, not being mobile, not being able to spend the appropriate time with your kids and connect with them in a heartfelt way. Really looking at the various areas of your life and asking yourself, like, is this the way you want to live? That's really where it starts. And that's the difficult part, because that requires you to be honest with yourself first. And until you can be honest with yourself, there will be no shift, there will be no changes. And so what I have found working as a coach, and even as I think back on my HR career, I don't think people take enough time to get quiet, to get settled, and to ask themselves these tough questions, because we're in constant movement. We're in constant hustle. Oh, go to work. Oh, I got to take care of the kids. Oh, the kids need this. People need that. Da, 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 da. You're in constant movement. So when do you have that time to just be for a moment and sit with yourself and ask, is this the life that I want? Am I exhausted? And if I am, how is that exhibited in my body? How is that exhibited in my environment? Because I'm telling you, there are signs. There are always signs. And so that would be the first step. The first step is asking yourself the question, but even prior to that, to maybe it's not the first step, second step is getting quiet and still enough to ask the question. Because if you're in constant movement and you don't even take the opportunity to say or to look around and say, is this the life that I want? And particularly if you have kids, you're setting that example for them, right? And so, what example do you want them to walk away with when they think about their childhood? My mommy and daddy worked all the time. Daddy worked all the time. Or, mommy was never home. Or mommy was constantly drinking and da 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 da. Or eating and binging and all the things, right? And I say that not to evoke any type of shame with that, but for us to really get honest with ourselves about what's working and what's not working in our life.
I love that. I think it's so important, as you said, to find time or create opportunity to sit and really consider that, really um, have that quiet space to allow yourself to go there. And I think a lot of what holds people back, and this is just my opinion and what I, speaking from my experience and how I respond, I think sometimes that's fear-based, because we don't want to know what the answers to those questions are. And so it's better to just not ask them, right? And it's better to
Mm.
just distract ourselves with the work or the next thing, whatever it is, right? And so um I this whole conversation is really fascinating, but I want to talk about um the type of life that people who do make this shift can live, and what kind of results really people get when they work with you on finding that balance and creating this new life.
Yeah. That's such a beautiful question because the other day, it was just this week, yesterday, I think it was, for the first time ever, so I have a gym that's not far from my house. And I've been working with a personal trainer the last 6 months. And so was on my way to my appointment with my trainer. And I decided to walk there. I'm really focused right now on getting my 10,000 plus steps in a day, right? And so I was walking to the gym and I just kind of raised my head and looked at the blue sky. I saw the white clouds and I felt the sun on my face. And I realized for me, oh my God, I'm living the life that I dreamed about. And what I mean by that is when I was in corporate, I had the desire to work for myself, start a coaching practice, have the freedom and expansiveness of being able to dictate my time. And as I was on that walk, I was like, oh my gosh, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, right now, I would be sitting in my stuffy office, probably in a meeting or, counseling one of my employees to do better, this, that, and the other. And just the stress and the anxiety of that. And as I said, I realized, oh my God, by me making a courageous decision to step away, walk away, and ask myself those tough questions. Danyelle, is staying in this corporate job with the fancy title and all the things, is that really how you want to live your life? And to your point, I mean, fear came up big time. And I had to work with my own coach to get through that. And so ultimately, I did, and I made that decision to live how I wanted to live. And so on the other end of it, I have the freedom and the flexibility to go to the gym at 10 a.m. and work out hard and fuel my body with energy and eat well and feel good and feel strong and feel healthy. And not only my physical body, but also my mind, having clarity of thought and vision and my intentions for this year. And so these are some of the results my clients and people who work with me can get when they make the decision to want to live differently, when they make the decision that burnout is no longer an option for me, exhaustion is no longer an option for me. And yeah, I go on my 2 weeks vacation. And let me just say this, having been in HR for so long, I was shocked at the number of people that never took vacations. They would have like nearly a year's worth of vacation time that they never took. And again, that signals to me what's going on in America, what's going on in our society where you have all this accumulated time, but you refuse to take it. So I digress there. But you know, again, it's about getting honest with oneself, facing the fear, face it head on, face it full on, full force, but making the decision and moving through the fear anyway. And yeah, your hands are going to be shaky. Yeah, considering a paradigm shift and living in a different way is gonna be super scary, but you can do it. And on the other end of that, I believe, is where you really lean into your purpose. You really lean into what God has called you to do in terms of a career, in terms of a job, in terms of influence in your circle of influence in society. And that's how you want to live.
I love that. That is a perfect answer and a perfect way to wrap up this session. It doesn't look like we have any questions in the chat, but I really appreciate your time, Danyelle. This has been amazing. For anyone who hasn't watched it yet, please go watch her presentation. We'll have links to that. Um, where can people go to connect with you and find out more about what you're doing?
Sure. So you can go to my website, havencoachingconsulting.com. I'm also on social media. I'm on Instagram at your coach Danyelle. I'm on YouTube, X. So I'm all over, but certainly my website would be the place where you can learn more about me and the work that I do.
Perfect. We will have links to that in our notes here in the description and on our website. So you have your speaker profile there. So go there to find those links and connect with Danyelle if you haven't already. And yeah, thank you again, Danyelle, and for
You.
anyone watching this.
Thank you, everyone.